And good evening to you for the Gulf Coast Blitz here as we come to you here with our show going into week number 9. Thank you for joining us here on 40hsfootball.com and the 40hsfootball.com social media networks. Glad to have everybody here as we are live, loud and proud. Yes. And again, our heartfelt thoughts, our prayers, and everything regarding what has happened here with Hurricane Milton this past week. And I know everybody is recovering. So the show tonight, in terms of the blitz lines coming up, it's going to be light. Not a lot of action. Only 2 games played last night in the Sarasota County area, and it was all Sunshine State Athletic Schools taking advantage of trying to potentially play and get games in. And we're going to have Patrick Obley from the Charlotte Sun on here in a little bit, kind of give us some insight of what happened, and, talk about some of the stuff, because the storm didn't come in south of Tampa Bay, but the impacts were felt up and down along the coast. And I know we can't get everybody, but there's definitely been a lot of schedule tweaking, a lot going on here across the area, and everything going on here in terms of what has happened here with the impacts from Hurricane Milton. And a lot of schedule change, a lot has happened here over the last week. And with the FHA granting things here, we're changing some things up. We're going to be able to talk about that coming up here in just a few minutes here. But again, a lot going on here with the schedule changes, and a lot going on with what happened here during Hurricane Milton. So we're going to talk about that here in just a moment here. Again, our heartfelt sympathies to everybody dealing with the recovery and the cleanup from Hurricane Milton. I know some of y'all potentially in the viewing area for the Gulf Coast Blitz also had impacts from Hurricane Helene. So it was definitely a double whammy, so to speak, in terms of 2 hurricanes within just 2 weeks timing. And we definitely feel for y'all in terms of what has happened here and everything that has happened here in the last couple of weeks here along the Gulf Coast in the Gulf Coast Blitz. We already got a couple of comments. If you got some comments, hit us up and on the comment box and on whether you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, or X/Twitter. We definitely appreciate everybody joining us. I know this is not our normal night for the Gulf Coast Blitz. I know some people are still dealing with power outages. Some people are still dealing with a lot of cleanup. So I understand that some of y'all, some people probably are not on and everything, and trying to still deal with the recovery from Hurricane Milton at this particular time. All right, Reno says, let's go Gulf Coast. And yes, hopefully the Gulf Coast will be able to get things back on track here as we roll along here over this course of this week and next week. Emery Williams Smith, glad to hear from you, Emery. And he had the nerve last week was nerve-wracking with the hurricane. Can't wait to watch some football this week. And like I said yesterday, whatever small chance we have left, I think Hardy needs to beat Northport this week in order to make the playoffs. If we lose Northport, I don't see any path at all for Hardy to make the playoffs. And Hardy is sitting outside in the playoffs right this second. And we'll see what happens there. And we're going to roll along with that and talk about some of the stuff that has happened here with the playoffs and everything that has gone on here as we roll along. And again, I know it's trying times for a lot of people along the Gulf Coast and the Gulf Coast region, all the way from Pasco County all the way down to Naples. So, and Mark Cannon is asking, where's Noli? I don't know where Noli is at. I wish I knew where Noli is at. So, man, I really, really wish I knew where he was at right now. And because we would definitely be talking about some things. I'm sure we will hear from him at some point. Hopefully everything is all right for him in terms of everything that has gone on here with the hurricane. So, hopefully everybody is safe there, especially for Noli from with the storm here. But as we get rolling here, let's go ahead and do this with. There we go. It is time for the Blitz lines, and as you know, we're going to say that the Blitz lines are not going to be very packed here this week in terms of the Gulf Coast Blitz. And as the FHA extended the season by a week here, as we've already talked about on all the shows, but we'll just keep mentioning it here with the FHA changing with the adding the flexibility, bringing the built-in bye week. That was going to be after the state semifinals, bringing it up and moving it up to create a week 12, so to speak, and that'll extend the regular season through Thursday, November 7th. And that means teams will be able to make up games, use that extra time to get their any games, district games, non-district games that might have been pretty impactful for any team. Thursday, November 7th, that is going to be the final play season pre-date for the season date, I should say, for the regular season. Thursday, November 7th, because the FHA is going to use Friday, November 8th to make sure everything's correct, make sure everything is accurate on Max Preps, make sure the rankings are right, and then they're going to release the playoff brackets and the rankings to us on Saturday, November 9th. So Saturday, November 9th, that's when the playoff brackets are going to come out with the for the FHA. And again, state championships 1A through 7A will be Wednesday, December 11th through Saturday, December 14th. The Rural still tentatively for December 6th. The Villages with the B bracket and the A bracket championships. So you got that right there in terms of the games with the added week. And now the state championships are going to be what we already know what the schedule is going to be like for those state championships coming up in December. And we'll talk more about that as we get progressing here towards the postseason. But rolling along here on the Gulf Coast Blitz, we okay, there we go. Teams are already actually taking advantage of the new added week, and especially if from what we saw from here with the especially down at the Fort Myers News Press, where they're reporting that a lot of teams have already hit the reschedule button and are taking that Thursday, November 7th and using it. And a lot of those week 8 games have been shifted down to Thursday, November 7th, and especially with a couple of the big matchups that we're going to see here coming up that particular week that we're going to be this past week. There's 2 that I really see here sticking out on their list so far, and one of them is Glade Central at Bishop Road. That's going to decide a district championship. You got Fort Myers at Riverdale. That is going to decide. That's going to not necessarily a district championship, I believe, but that is going to decide a lot of things because that's going to be huge in terms of the power rankings right there. And here this means Immokalee at Palmetto Ridge. That is actually going to be a district game right there too, I believe, for Immokalee on Palmetto Ridge there as well. So that's Friday, that's Friday, November 1st. And Palmetto Ridge was supposed to play Jefferson, but now that's going to be Friday, November 1st coming up here. And Lakeland, especially up there in Polk County, with that, there is actually some games as well that has been shifted here. And a lot of the week 8 games there have been shifted to Thursday, November 7th as well. But on Wednesday, November 6th, Lakeland will play at Sebring. So they will make up that game. And that'll be most likely for the district title there in that district between Lakeland and Sebring right there. And there's some other games that have been moved. George Jenkins, Winter Haven, Kathleen, Lake Gibson, some district title implications sitting there between Jenkins and Winter Haven. Gaffling and Lake Gibson, not so much that, but could determine Lake Gibson's playoff fate with that particular game. Victory Christian at Tampa Carrollwood Day. Keep an eye on that game because that's going to decide the district title there in Class 1A district. I want to say District 7 is that. I want to say 1A District 7. And then, of course, our DeSoto County, Mulberry on November 7th as well. So a lot of shifts going on in terms of the games. Teams are taking advantage of the added week coming up here in a few weeks here. So we got another comment sitting here in our box here. Let's see. And according to from Emery Smith, according to the Daily Sun, DeSoto plays Lake Placid this Friday. DeSoto then plays Harding next week for the 106th straight continuous game of Florida's high school oldest rivalry. Yes. I wonder when they will make up the district game against Mulberry that was postponed due to the hurricane. I'm assuming on the new built-in bye week. Okay, and I did answer that for Emory right there. So yeah, DeSoto County, Mulberry. That'll be Thursday, November 7th And it looks like those games are all going to be 7 p.m. at time. And yeah, thank you. You're welcome, Emery, on that. And I appreciate you on that one. So let's roll along here as we Patrick Obley from the Charlotte Sun. He's sitting there on the line, sitting there in the video waiting for us. So we're just going to go ahead and roll these couple headlines here because there was only 2 games last night. And First State Stevens 28-10 over Cambridge Christian. And how about this? Looking at the box score, Cam Brewer, how about this? Had 4 rushing touchdowns. And having his biggest run was of 60 yards, but 4 touchdowns in that game against Cambridge Christian, one of the rare few games that did get played along the entire Gulf Coast last night in makeup game. And how about this with St. Stevens? Continuing like Cam Brewer, they did just really, really rolled it off. And then Sarasota Christian, how about them? 37-28 over Keswick Christian. And Keswick Christian has been doing pretty solid here. But these 2 games, they're trying to get them in because the Sunshine State Athletic Association, we haven't mentioned this really because we haven't talked too much about it, but the Sunshine State Athletic Association did come out, I believe it was yesterday. They are not extending their regular season at this time, so they are going to continue as what the schedule is. Their last week of the regular season is actually next week, and then they start their postseason on November 1st. So Sunshine State Athletic Association starting their postseason November 1st, and the FHA playoffs will actually start November 15th. So just kind of keeping that in mind between the 2 associations here in the Sunshine State. All right, as we roll along here, we got Patrick Obley from the Charlotte Sun coming up here, and then we're gonna take our water break coming up here now, and then we'll be back for the interview and talk about everything that's happened especially along the south end of where Hurricane Milton went through. We're gonna talk about that coming up here in just a couple minutes. Here, you're watching the Gulf Coast Blitz right here on the FloorHSFootball.com social media networks. We'll be right back right after this 2-minute water break. All right, welcome back here on the Gulf Coast Blitz here on FloorHSFootball.com. And joining us is Patrick Obley from the Charlotte Sun. Patrick, appreciate you joining me here. I know you got this everything. I hope you're doing well with everything in terms of the recovery from Hurricane Milton. I know that the Gulf Coast took a serious impact, and let's talk about that because I know it's been interesting to track the changes so far in terms of the remaining of the 2024 schedule, and kind of give us a little bit of insight so far what has happened down there in your coverage area down in the Charlotte County area.
As far as the scheduling goes, or
Yeah, the scheduling goes. Yeah,
Okay.
this is as far as the scheduling. Yeah, then we'll talk about some of the impacts that you've seen here, because I know you, once Milton passed, you kind of drove around, and there were some interesting things. I mean, fish in a parking lot. Let's talk about that too.
Well, that was Lemon Bay, which is no surprise. That's where Lemon Bay is in Inglewood, which took a direct hit from the surge. The surge came in there pretty high, cut a new pass in one of the islands passing by.
Ooh.
And the high school's football field was on a bit of an island, maybe a little bit. A lot of the surge went around it. It was flooded for just a little bit, and yeah, like I said, there were dead fish in the parking lot. There were live fish in the long jump pit, which I thought was pretty fascinating. I was tempted to try to help them out, but I let them be. I hope somebody else found them and got them to safety. But Lemon Bay actually came through it much better. Our measuring stick here is Ian. Ian came through in September 2022. We took a direct hit from Ian. A lot of things got damaged by Ian, and we kind of measured everything that happened with Milton by Ian, and by that measuring stick, it wasn't as bad. The surge was worse, but the wind, the rain, all the other things you associate, even the tornadoes, weren't quite as bad as they were for Ian. And all the school football fields pretty much came through intact. Lemon Bay had some scoreboard damage. Babcock, a new school here, had some scoreboard damage. But other than that, everybody was ready to go. They wanted to get out and start practice last Friday. They weren't cleared, obviously, by the school district, but I think Venice High had its goalpost torn down by the storm. But other than that, everything came through pretty well.
No, that's good. And let's talk about these teams that are in your coverage area, especially there's two of them that are really been making their climb in the playoff rankings, or they're in the playoff hunt big time. But let's start with Port Charlotte, because they're sitting there. They're ranked number 3 in their region. They've had a tough schedule. I mean, they have not played. They definitely have not played the easy foes that some other schools may play along the way. And Port Charlotte definitely went out and put the tough schedule together. But I mean, despite that 4-3 record sitting there, I mean, they're sitting 3rd in their region. I mean, it's District 12 teams in that Class 4A region. It's the first 3 is Dunbar, Naples, Port Charlotte. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better district than that. I mean, talk about what the Pirates are doing. I mean, they're just incredible, regardless of the record.
I think, the big thing was going into the season, Jordan Ingman wanted to put together a bit of a tougher schedule. He tried to do that last year, actually. If you look at last year's schedule, he put together a schedule that on paper looked like it was going to be a very difficult schedule. The bottom dropped out for a lot of those teams, and it ended up not being that strong of a schedule. And that's been kind of the history at Port Charlotte. They put together good seasons, but they find themselves at the end of the year just kind of holding their breath and crossing their fingers and everything else they can cross, hoping the computer rankings let them into the playoffs. And he wanted to avoid that altogether this year by playing as tough a schedule as he could, so that if the worst happens, the computer rankings are there for him, and also his team is battle tested going into the district, which was the other part of this. He knew what district he was in this year. Having Naples and Dunbar sitting right there in his district, he knew he had to have a team that was ready to take that step and be on the same level with those two powerhouses. And, for the most part, they're ready. They played Venice tough. Their 2 losses were to Venice and First Baptist on the road. And for the most part, they played Venice very tough. They turned around the next week to play at First Baptist, and I think they suffered. You could tell they had a little bit of letdown in that game, because they were just coming off the Venice game, which was such a big game for them, just locally speaking. And but other than that, they've mauled every team they played outside of that. Their last game before the break here was South Fort Myers, a district foe, and they obliterated South Fort Myers. That was 56-3. That's the team that's 9th in that region, which tells you how much of a separation there is between where Naples, Dunbar, and Port Charlotte are, and where the cutoff is for that region. Those 3 teams are way ahead of everybody else in that region.
No, absolutely. And looking at it, the other team that's in the mix for the playoff hunt, how about Charlotte, what the Fighting Tarpons are doing? Because, I mean, now they're ranked 6th in their region. They did win a district title last year in their district. They kind of got in the back door, kind of like they were in the low end of the playoffs, but here they are. I mean, they're actually looking better than what they were last year. I mean, 4-2. I mean, they're 6th in their region, which is actually not bad when you're sitting there, when you, instead of potentially being like an 8th ranked team, you're going to 6, you're kind of in the mix here. So, I mean, what is it about, Charlotte? What's going on there with them?
Defense. It's all about their defense. Their defensive line is about as good as any in the area outside of, maybe Port Charlotte and Venice, obviously. Trent Curlis is a defensive end who's just unstoppable. Aaron Hurley is on the other side. He's proven to be pretty unstoppable as well. Nathan Slater-Yon is in there. They've just got a powerhouse defensive line, and they've always had good linebackers, and someone always steps up in the backfield. They always have someone good in the defensive backfield. They need to generate a little bit more offense. They're kind of struggling with that. They benched their freshman starting quarterback before their last game, Tegan Lipke, and brought in Stephen Bullock, who's their best playmaker on offense. To just he's kind of a wildcat quarterback. He's back there running on most plays or handing it off right there, and he's definitely their best playmaker on offense. The big thing about them is when you look at their district, they laid an egg down at Cape Coral and lost their district opener, and it was an incredibly winnable game for them. I think if they played 10 times, they win 9. But that particular game was, I think that was a Helene-related rescheduling. They had to move some stuff around. They ended up playing on a Saturday night. They didn't want to. It was pretty clear they didn't really show up for that game, and they got their teeth kicked in by Cape Coral, which is now in that district's driver's seat. And when you look ahead at Charlotte's schedule, what they've got left is 4 games because they did, like you were talking about, they took advantage of the extra week. They've got Port Charlotte in that last week, November 7th, the annual rivalry game there. They've got their 2 district games. They've got to play Mariner this week. They got Ida Baker, which are 2 very winnable games. So their whole season, I hate to be like this, but they're probably going to lose that Port Charlotte game. But their whole season is going to come down to their game on November 1st against North Fort Myers. I think if they can win that game after taking care of business in the other 2 district games, that would probably get them in the playoffs.
No, absolutely. And of course, I know that these teams are on the northern edge of your product coverage. I know Venice is kind of in that mix there for y'all. I know you talked about Venice, but I know, they got a big, huge game this week at Clearwater Central Catholic. And honestly, after, the last game they played was against ING Academy, and, they took that L right there. And, now this week you got Clearwater Central Catholic. So, do you think, the fact that neither team has played over in the last 2 weeks, do you feel like that, that this should give Venice a chance to, bounce back here, considering that, let's look back at the amount of points they have given up here this season so far outside of just recently. It just seems like, do you think like the defense is finally starting to click that, hey, we can keep the points being scored on us to a minimum now?
That was interesting what they did against IMG Academy. I guess to kind of to keep the defense off the field a little bit, they slowed down their offense. Anybody who's seen Venice play, the offense is high octane. They go a million miles an hour. They get as many plays in as possible. There's no huddling. The refs barely get out of the way before they snap the ball. Against IMG, they slowed that way down. They played a more conventional offense. They huddled even, which shocked everybody in the stadium. And they did that to just kind of keep their offense out there a little bit longer, keep IMG's offense off the field, to keep their scoring opportunities limited, and kind of bring down the game score a little bit to have themselves a shot at winning that game. And they made a couple mistakes in that IMG game, but if they somehow didn't make those mistakes and they made a couple plays, they could have beaten IMG that night. Clearwater Central Catholic, obviously, like you were saying, is one of the top 15 teams in the state. Obviously, they're right there with Venice as far as in any ranking system. That game is at Clearwater Central Catholic, and you kind of wonder, these are teenagers. You wonder what their emotions are going to be going into that. Will Clearwater be fired up because they're playing for the community a little bit? Clearwater, that St. Pete area got hit far worse than any of the areas down here. But on the flip side, Venice is a monster. There's no way to really describe them any other way. They're a powerhouse. They play the IMG game without their number one running back, and they still scared IMG. So I assume that guy's going to be back this week, John Maurice Wilder. If they're fully rested, fully charged up, fully ready to go, the defense was making a bit of a turn of the corner there a little bit. That game does. My crew was talking about on our podcast. That feels like a Venice win, even though it's a big challenge.
Yeah, I think there's a potential chance that I feel like that could be a Venice win. But I have that game on my pick 6 here for this week, so that'll be something to be that I'll be talking about here coming up here in just a few minutes time it as well. But I'll tell you what, Patrick, I know that it's been a lot for a lot of these teams down there, and and it's Godspeed to them and all of them for being able to just figure out this. And at least now, are you happy to see that the FHA, even though it kind of came a little late for some other teams around the state, that they finally added this extra week into the regular season just to kind of give these teams a breather? I think for me, I feel like it was about time.
Well, the big kerfuffle that was happening down here was this week was supposed to be the big rivalry game, the Peace River rivalry between Charlotte and Port Charlotte, a game they played every year since 1982 or so. And it looked like before they added this last week on, it looked like that game was going to end up being canceled this year because the teams needed to get those district games that they missed last week in this week. They were playing Lee County teams, and Lee County had already made the determination those district games take priority. They must be played the week of the 18th. So that pulled Charlotte into that basket a little bit. Lemon Bay, Charlotte, Port Charlotte were all playing Lee County teams. So they had to make up those games with the Lee County teams that particular week, which left no room on the schedule for the Port Charlotte game, and that turned into a real argument between the schools about when to play that game because that game's scheduled to be at Port Charlotte. It's their biggest gate of the year, biggest crowd of the year. They weren't willing to give the game to Charlotte, who was having a homecoming game that last week of the season, November 1st, was North Fort Myers at Charlotte, and Port Charlotte wanted Charlotte to give up the North Fort Myers game and come over to Port Charlotte and play them on November 1st. Charlotte was saying, nope, that's our homecoming. We're not changing the thing. And it looked like the schedule wasn't going to be able to get on the schedule. So this extra week lets them get that game in. So.
No, absolutely. And that's good because the rivalry games, whether be the district game or a non-district game, those games matter. And when it's the biggest game of the year, you want to try to get that game in. And thankfully that is going to happen there. And Patrick, tell everybody where they can find your work at and where to follow at you on social media.
Absolutely. We've got a website, sunpreps.com, pretty easy to remember. And my Twitter handle is PM as in Milton. How about that? PMO Writer on Twitter, and that's I'm out there tweeting. I'm always somewhere. I'm doing something somewhere. I'm not sure where I'm going to be this Friday night, but I'll be out there somewhere.
Out there somewhere, indeed, and and some good commentary on his Twitter feed, by the way, as well. Sometimes you get some comments and you get some commentary that hey, you don't necessarily see every day, but it's always wonderful to hear some insights from different brains, because all of our brains think differently, and but thankfully that at least I think everybody was in agreement, and it's glad that we're finally added an extra week, but for some things I know it may have come a little too late, but for some like for Port Charlotte and Charlotte, there you go, to keep that Peace River rivalry going, there you go. Probably
a little too much Royals commentary on my Twitter, but their season's over, so I'm not going to do that anymore. So.
Baseball, go baseball junkie, there you go, I love it. All right. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for joining us here, and we'll talk to you more as the postseason approaches here, and appreciate it again joining us here on the Gulf Coast Blitz.
Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. All right. That was Patrick Obley for joining us here from the Charlotte Sun, and we definitely appreciate his insight, especially what's going on in the Charlotte County area and some of the southern Sarasota County area. We do have some comments that popped up in the box as we were talking here with Patrick, and pull this up here, and Emery Williams Smith talking about Northport and Hardy. Northport had some field damage, and Hardy had offered them to use the field, but they said no, and they wanted to play Hardy on their own field. So there's that. I got a couple more comments. We're going to take those comments and questions afterwards when we come back after our second water break here on the Gulf Coast Blitz. Appreciate everybody joining us. If you're not following us on social media, follow us at Florida HS Football, except on X/Twitter. That's at FLA HS Football. We'll be right back right after this here on the Gulf Coast Blitz here on FloridaHSFootball.com. Welcome back here to the Gulf Coast Blitz here on FloridaHSFootball.com. Appreciate everybody joining us here as we roll along here. And we got some comments, not so much a question, but comments. But Christopher Like chimes in and says the FHA needs to add the buffer week 12 permanently every year. Some part of the state has a significant outburst by Mother Nature. And I don't disagree there. And honestly, I it's not just myself. John Santucci with the USA Today Network. He's been advocating it for several years. I feel like a bit, honestly, we really need that buffer. We really need that buffer in terms of having an extra bye week somewhere built in. So that way teams can be able to get their games in. How does that get worked into the schedule? How does that look going forward? How does that help teams, not help teams? There's going to be a lot of discussion. We still got one more year of the current classification cycle, but it makes me wonder, do we see some changes come next year in terms of adding that bye week in? And do we see that maybe even being buffer built in further once reclassification comes for the 2026 school year? So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I agree with you, Chris, that definitely that we add that buffer of week 12 in there permanently. That would be surely greatly appreciated by a lot of schools, having that buffer built in, knowing that, hey, okay, in case something happens, we're able to go to say, hey, we'll see you in week 12 and we'll go from there. Emory Williams Smith, I can tell you that the information that you shared about on regarding Northport, everything that was accurate, and also Hardy, but for Hardy, going to the game, but Northport's field did check out, so they're good to go to play that game, and that's why they wanted to be able to play the game at Northport on their field. So I can understand why, that even though that was a kind gesture by Hardy to offer the field and give them all the ticket revenue. I know, sometimes it's not the same thing as being able to play on your own home field. And then of course, Emory Williams says Port Charlotte has been impressive this year, and they have 2 tough games against Dunbar and Naples remaining. And that's a tough district. Those 3 teams are in the top 3 in their region. Yes, they are. And I suspect that we'll continue to see them in the top 12 of the top 3 in the rankings for that region in Class 4A Region 3. All right. Do you know what time it is? I know what time it is. Yeah, it's time for the Pick 6, and you can chime along, play along here as we do the picks here. Just comment wherever you're watching us at, on YouTube at Florida HS Football, on Facebook at Florida HS Football, or on X/Twitter at Florida HS Football. So that's how you can chime in and play along with the picks here. Reno is like, woo, easy. I feel like I hear a 2 claps and a Ric Flair somewhere along here. So, all right. So we have a Saturday game on the first thing, but actually let's talk about the results from the last previous week. And actually, I did not set that correctly in the picks here, so I did not get that part changed when I was trying to get the rundown built out. So I was 5-1 in the picks from week 7, and actually my record is now at 29-5. That's 34-13, which still keeps me over. Well, let's look at that right now. 34 plus 13, that's 47 games. So 34 divided by let's see, 34. What did I just have here? 34. Yeah, I'm doing math on the fly here, trying to think here. 34 plus 13. Someone help me here. All right, 34 divided by 47. Yeah, that keeps me at that actually bumps me up to 72% there. So on the thing. So I'll have that updated next time for next week's show come Monday with this week's picks. All right, let's roll along here. We've got a Saturday game, a Saturday special. Plant at Berkeley Prep, and both teams need this game pretty much here. I'll tell you right now. Okay, so you got Berkeley Prep. They're sitting at rank number 6 in their region in Class 2A Region 2, 5.863. In front of them is Calvary Christian, who beat them, who basically is going to take the district title there in Class 2A District 8. And then in front of that is you got Palaca at 4, Cocoa 3, Newberry 2, Bradford 1. So there's that region right there, Class 2A Region 2. All right, for Plant over in Class 6A Region 2, they are ranked number 5 right now, 6.438. And ahead of them is Bartow, Osceola, Durant, and then Armwood. All right, so my thought is this. It's a home game. It's going to this game could be a coin toss. And this is going to be the first game for these teams in 2 weeks' time. They haven't played in 2 weeks. My thought is this, and this is where I'm going to go with it. I like Plant. I like Berkeley Prep, but I feel like Berkeley Prep is going to be ready for this one, and I am going with the Berkeley Prep Buccaneers. By the way, the Berkeley Prep Buccaneers have been around longer than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just note that. So there you go. Fact of the day, a little useless factoid. All right, but I'm going Berkeley Prep here, and Reno is going with Berkeley Prep being fully prepared for the win. Mark Cannon is going opposite. He's going with Plant, and Christopher Lake is going Berkeley Prep by 3. So kind of a mix here with the terms of the picks here. So I appreciate that on the picks as we roll along here into game number 2. We got Glade Central 6-0 at Sebring 4-2. That game will be at Fireman's Field there in Sebring. Glade Central definitely doing very well this year. And obviously didn't get to play last week due to Hurricane Milton. Palm Beach County kind of kept things tight and what the teams could do, not having practice. So, I mean, really both teams haven't been able to play here, especially in the last 2 weeks. But Glade Central's just got something special cooking, and I know this is going to be hard, and I know Sebring has been in some tough games here, but I'm going to go roll with the Raiders here. I'm going with Glade Central for a big win on Friday night at Fireman's Field. And Reno is chiming in saying Glade Central will outlast Sebring for the win. Christopher Like is going Glade Central by 13, and Mark Cannon is saying Sebring. Wow. So Mark Cannon's going against the grain us here, but I like it. I like it, Mark. I like it. I definitely like that. All right. So next up on the picks, we got a battle of two undefeated teams, which we should have had a battle of two undefeated teams last week, which would have been Mitchell and Wiregrass Ranch, which we had talked about that before everything happened with Hurricane Milton. That game has now been being moved to November 7th. Pasco County was trying to take all the Week 8 games and move them to November 7th. So that is the plan right now. So right now, Springstead at Wiregrass Ranch, both teams undefeated. When it comes to strength of schedule, I think there's definitely a big difference here. All right, let's talk about Springstead first. Springstead sitting there in Class 5A, Region 2. Their power ranking right now is at 11.176. They're ranked number 4 in Class 5A, Region 2. Wiregrass Ranch holding the number 1 seed right now in Class 6A, Region 3 at a 16.990. Honestly, I'm telling you this right now. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how Springstead prepares for Wiregrass Ranch. And honestly, when I love to see the comments here, but you know what? My thought is this: Wiregrass Ranch has played the tougher schedule, and that's where I'm going with the Bulls for the win this week. So Wiregrass Ranch remains undefeated, heading towards that huge showdown that will come with Mitchell in week number 12. Reno's actually going to disagree with me on this one here, and he's going to go with Springstead for the win here. And Mark Cannon says Wiregrass Ranch for the win there. And wait a second, Springstead, Springsteen, no, Springstead, I cannot change my pick. Wait. And Christopher, like, what you going to do when Wiregrass Ranch runs wild on you? Say that fast about 6 times over. Wiregrass Ranch by 6. I like that right there. So Reno says that he's going with Springstead, and Mark Cannon wants to chase his pick to Springstead. So, all right, Mark, I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you on that one. All right, how about this? Let's go into our 4th game. West Boca Raton, 5-1 at Bishop Moreau, 4-2. That'll be Friday night. That game will happen. It's on the schedule, confirmed by the Fort Myers News Press and a few other sources as well. West Boca Raton sitting right now ranked number 4 in Class 6A Region 3, 13.021. Bishop Moreau sitting there in Class 2A Region 3, ranked number 2, 15.057. This game's going to be interesting. And honestly, my pick, well, West Boca Raton. I'm going with West Boca Raton because I think, honestly, I know both teams have played the tough schedule, but West Boca, I know, you look at that one loss. Yes, they had a close overtime loss to Western. But West Boca could have still been undefeated at this point. And I think West Boca just has played slightly better of a schedule. I know Bishop Rose played Venice. Don't get me wrong. But when we look at South Florida versus the West Coast, the Southwest Florida, it's a little different. But Reno is saying he's going with Bishop Verot here for his pick, and Mark Cannon is going with B Verot as well. But Christopher Like is saying West Boca by 10. So I love that, seeing that there from y'all as we roll along here with the pick 6. All right, game number 5, Palmetto 6-0 at Manatee 5-1. Manatee lost their game with Benjamin, so they're looking for a new game for November 7th for week 12. And honestly, Palmetto doing really well. I got to give them a lot of credit with what the Palmetto Tigers are doing. But Manatee, I've seen Manatee already this year. Manatee is just a team. Jaquez Green got those Hurricanes rolling, and they're gonna blow a hurricane on Palmetto. And I'm going with Manatee here, but I see there's just some of disagreements already popping up in the chat here. So, but I'm going with Jaquez Green and the Manatee Hurricanes. And but Reno says he's going with Palmetto, and that would be a huge upset here in terms of the rankings. And as we look at it, Manatee ranked number 1 in Class 5A Region 3, 18.553, and Palmetto right now, ranked number 2 in Class 6A Region 3 at 16.686. So Christopher Like is saying Manatee by 9. Mark Cannon is like Manatee, even though my first wife went there. He's saying that Manatee, even though my first wife went there. Wow. All right, so we've got some picks for Manatee here, and then Reno's going with Palmetto. So some mix up here among the teams here on the picking in our pick 6. And last but not least, we have one more game up here. The big, huge game. Venice 6-1 at Clearwater Central Catholic 7-0. That'll be Friday night, a 7:30 kickoff. The Indians finally starting to get the defense to keep things in a situation, where they're not giving up as many points. But my pick, I know this is going to be a tough game. Both teams haven't played in over 2 weeks. It's going to be really, really tough in terms of, who wants it more, especially for their communities and all of that. I know, as Patrick Obley said, it's teenagers. How are their emotions going to be on the field? We don't know. There's going to be a lot of emotions as these teams come line up to play on Friday night. And, I honestly, my pick, I love CCC. I love what Chris Harvey is doing. John Peacock, hell of a coach too. But I mean, I'm rolling with Venice here on this one. But it was a coin flip, and honestly, if CCC wins, I wouldn't be shocked. So, but as we go, Reno says it's a clear picture here, CCC for the win. So he's going CCC. So our picks are differing here a little bit on this show, and I like it. And Mark Cannon says Venice, but my heart will be with CCC. Christopher Like says CCC by 7, combined 95 points. That could be a potentially high-scoring affair. And then Emery Smith says Venice versus CCC should be an interesting matchup, and I wonder how many points Venice will give up, but Venice should be the big favorite. I predict Venice win by about 10 points, possibly in a high-scoring game. Yes, it could be very much a high-scoring game. So, with that said, that is the pick 6 for week number 9 coming up here on the Gulf Coast Blitz. And I appreciate everybody joining us and playing along here and putting your picks up as well. I love sharing those picks here as we interact with you here on the Gulf Coast Blitz and as well as on our other shows. So definitely appreciate that as we wrap up our week number 9 show here for the Gulf Coast Blitz, and definitely appreciate everybody joining us here. We'll be back on our normal night, 8:30 to 9:15 on Monday nights, starting next week again. And looks like some nice, cool fall weather is going to be upon us here. So definitely appreciate everybody joining us here on the Gulf Coast Blitz, and we'll be back again next week, next Monday night. And so woo, 2 claps on a Ric Flair. I get that from Reno. Yes, I appreciate that. And thank you, Emery Smith. Appreciate you being on, and great. Thank you. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you next week on our normal time slots for the Gulf Coast Blitz right here on 40chessfootball.com and the 40chessfootball.com social media networks. Good night.